Honestly unbalanced.
You sound like me and my partner. Exactly
Really?
the same. He's like hardcore South African, practical as it gets. And
Yeah.
I'm there like, when I first met him, I gave him the love language and the attachment theory book. And I was like, read these. And he was like, oh my God, this girl's intense. But hey, it helps so much with our relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm not like regressing anything.
Yeah.
But was that-
it's practical? That's
Was that a
practical.
prerequisite?
Yeah.
Like, as in, he did the test, and if he had the wrong love language, would that have been end of relationship?
100%. But I don't tell him that because he passed with flying colours. So we're good.
Oh,
What would have
bless
been
him.
what would have been the wrong answer?
No, I'm joking. He actually is the complete opposite of me, and probably what I didn't think that I would go for in a partner, because unfortunately he's very similar to, I don't want to say my dad, but in the terms of like being practical and very kind of non-emotional and very, I thought I'd want more of a, I guess, partner more in tune with their emotions, but he's like opposite to that. Definitely getting better, but we're opposites in that sense. But it's actually helped that mirror for each other has been really tough.
I want to say this for stuff for the podcast. This is like, I want to ask.
This is the podcast.
Are we recording?
This is the podcast. We're sitting in
We're
front of
in.
microphones. There's recording lights
Press
everywhere.
record. I'm sorry for interrupting your flow. There was like no official starting question answered, so I just assumed.
It's good. I went in the deep end. I'm pulling back now. I'm
No,
reserving that for later.
We love the deep.
Yeah, no, we love the deep. But on that note, like, I'm always intrigued by kind of love language, etc. And opposites, etc. in relationships. So in terms of opposites, and you guys are opposites, have you had any points in which the fact that you're opposite has been an obstacle? So what I mean by that is often opposites attract to some degree, and then opposites that attract kind of work initially. In the, Holly's really disorganized in some sense.
No, I'm not. I would say like floaty.
Okay.
I'm more organised than you, actually.
Okay. Holly had baby brain before she was pregnant.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say it in that way. And I'm very on it in terms of organising and like looking out for risk in the world. And that's all good. But then there comes a time later on in the relationship where the thing that you were attracted to, like the floatiness or like, can become a bit of a problem, because the opposite side of that is then perhaps an unreliability. Or then for me, Holly might have been attracted to the fact that I look out for danger and risk. But then the counter of that is the fact that actually sometimes it gets in the way of us doing something. Like, have you experienced that being with your opposite?
Yes. And what I found difficult at the start, so we've been together now just 3 years. And at the very start of our relationship, we had the toughest time. So probably the 3 months was incredible. Honeymoon period, fireworks, passion, like it was incredible. And I was head over heels. Hopefully he was, like, it was just amazing. And then we faced some real difficulties because a lot of the stuff that I brought into the relationship from my previous relationship, or the emotional baggage, it started kind of coming out in various ways that really, we call it now, I was essentially throwing these kind of grenades into our relationship and seeing what would happen, testing it. Because for me, I've never believed that a relationship will last. I've always kind of worried that it will end, and I protect myself, and I've got that kind of, again, avoidant style to kind of keep pushing them away. And he was kind of like, why is this girl just trying to continuously test our relationship and push us and, see what she can break? And for me, it was all a kind of protective mechanism, but it caused lots of issues. And we also tried to work together early on in our relationship, which was super conducive to our lifestyle because we're both in the same industry. It sounds on paper like it would flow really well and was a natural kind of progression, but actually that caused a lot of issues because we're both very headstrong, both very independent, and we just tried to do so much at the start, and the I guess the opposite nature of ourselves ended up clashing a lot and caused a lot of issues between us. So the first, I'd say, 6-7 months were the hardest, and we had to go through a lot of shit to get through to the other side. And family, friends at the time were like, it shouldn't be this hard. A relationship should be easy at the start. It should feel natural and free flowing, and just, it shouldn't be a difficult challenge to work through. Which, if I'd listened to them at the time, I could have been like, yeah, you're right, you know what, I'm going to sack it off. But I actually believed it would get us through the most difficult time, so that now we're in a place where we understand so much about each other. We've had so many hard conversations that I think some of our couple friends now who are 8, 9, 10 years down the road haven't even discussed before. I'd rather be there and done all that hard work than waiting until we're even further down the line, kids, house, all of that stuff, and then be addressing that stuff. So it's been tough and it hasn't been smooth sailing, but I also love that. I love the nitty gritty, to be honest. So I'm happy with it.
You had a bit of fast tracking going on there. As in you got to the problem
really?
like sooner rather than later is what I meant. So like what you
sorry,
were saying.
I thought you meant the audio.
Oh no.
Okay, good. I was like, oh no.
Like hitting the problems on the head. That's not the phrase, but you know what I mean. You sorted things out earlier rather than later. Yeah. And in what ways?
Exactly. And I think we're still gonna hit those kind of barriers because we are so different. And I display love and affection very physically and verbally, and I'm very outward with my emotion, whereas he is much more inward with that, and he kind of the things he does represents love rather than actually verbally showing it. So I think that's something, again, we have had to work through, and why love languages and attachment styles are so important for us at the start, because we then understood each other and what we needed, and rather than me just giving love how I wanted to receive it and vice versa, we could understand, okay, how I'm giving love is actually how I'm wanting to receive it, and I need to give it to her in a different way. And as soon as we work through that, it's just asking for those things can feel awkward and difficult, especially when you want it to be all romantic and fun and fireworks at the start. It can feel a bit like, well, I'm having to ask for this. Does that mean it's not meant to be? But I don't believe that. I believe you have to put work in. It's like my work and my business. If I'm not putting work and time and effort and learning into it, it's not going to grow and develop. And that's the same as our relationship. So it's constantly evolving, and so it's a lot of work, but it's good work.
I love that.
And there has to be compromise as well. I think sometimes in the modern world, in the social media, we're often told that we need to do all the time what is completely right for us and no one else. And actually, to be in a deep, meaningful relationship, you need hard conversations. And then at some point, you need compromise. You need to acknowledge what the other person needs or what they're going through at a particular time of their life. It can't just be about you. And I think 100%. In the modern world, sometimes that is a challenge for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think also it's the comparison as well, isn't it? I mean, there's so much out there on social media, these perfect couples, couple goals. And every time I share something online about our relationship not being 100% perfect, the amount of people that are like, oh my God, I needed to hear that. Or I'm glad you're going through the same thing. And it's just that realization that no couple is perfect. And there's some couples that will share more with you over a glass of wine, some that you think are perfect, but you've got no idea what's going on behind closed doors. So everyone's different in how they process it. But for me, that kind of constant communication with my partner, with my friends, with my family, everything just really helps me process it, because I can get very lost in my own head and overthink things, which then creates these toxic cycles in my own mind,
And speaking about comparison, you shared on one of your recent stories that you'd taken a little bit of time out of social media because you were having a couple of days where you didn't feel amazing in your body and you were worried you were going to go down that kind of comparison hole. And me sitting here, I look at you and I think, wow, it's so lovely that someone like you has shared that, because it just goes to show that we're all the same. We all get stuck in our heads and go down those spirals. So yeah, how do you navigate that personally, and what are your tools to kind of pull you back into a more positive frame of mind?
So it's a constant battle for me with my mind, to be honest. And I think because I'm a very emotive and creative person, I do ride those highs and lows. It's something I experienced at a very young age. And for a long time, I was told, you're too much, you're too intense, you're too this, all of these things, which I saw as very negative, and I very much tried to hide the low times. And I didn't want anyone to see me as a low person, and especially in the last, I guess, 5 years since my kind of growth online, and I'm doing these live workouts, I am seen as this full of energy type of person. And I'm trying to inspire people, trying to get them to move. And I love that. And it's part of what is me, but it's not all of me. And I was so scared to show the other side, which was needing to reset a lot of the time, needing my own time, loving my own time. And I was really uncomfortable with showing that until I started to talk more about it more openly. And I discussed a little bit online my mild mood disorder, which again, I thought was just something that I shouldn't talk about. But again, when I spoke about it more, and I do experience very extreme highs and extreme lows. When I spoke about that more, again, people kind of wanted to share their story, and it allowed me to feel safe, them to feel safe. And it kind of was that ripple effect of us all feeling, I guess, comfortable with that vulnerability. And I still have days now where, like over the last week, I look in the mirror and I don't see the same person, I guess, that other people see. You know, my partner will say to me, well, nothing's changed about your body. You look exactly the same, but I'm seeing something completely different. And a lot of it's to do with kind of, I guess, body dysmorphia and my past eating disorder that I had when I was younger. But when I try and navigate it now, I do have quite a robust toolbox that I've built over the last few years to help me navigate it better. And a lot of it will be removing myself from social media, because for me, but again, for everyone, when you're seeing that comparison 24/7, it's just being pushed out to you the whole day, and you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you look at, and you check it at lunchtime, and it's all these reminders of everything that sometimes everything that you're lacking, and all you're seeing is the highlights of everyone's day and their life and their bodies, and it just reminds you the things that you haven't got or you think you haven't got. So I remove myself from that, and I will often just kind of immerse myself in like nature. For me, that's so helpful, just to have that perspective shift. It always almost helps me like zoom out of my own problems and be like, oh, there's a world going on around here that's not just about me. Because it's really just, I get so kind of self-absorbed in the most, the nicest way to myself. It's not because I'm kind of obsessed with, my image or what I'm doing. It's because I just get so in my own head. So I take myself out of that, go for my walks with my dog, or I go for a run with my favorite music, or I just dance around like a crazy person, just until I kind of shift that mental state. Because for me, when I can change my physical state, it very often changes the mental state. So I've got quite a good toolbox now that works for me, but it's different for everyone, obviously. And I just encourage everyone out there to try and find what that toolbox is, because we all have the capability to change that and to have those, tools that we can use every day when we feel those shifts happening.
On the social media front, like, there's lots of talk, of course, about like how social media perhaps isn't so good for our mental health as a kind of a general talking point, but then specifically for people whose income is tied to it. So like for all of us, we promote through social media, maybe we do adverts and campaigns through social media. Often there is a direct link between how our social media is doing and how much money we're earning at the time. And in any other self-employed business, of course, you could check out your competitors, but you probably don't that often. Like if I ran a web design company, I'm not getting my competitors' work shoved in my face constantly. But the very tool that you're using to make money is immediately showing what every one of your competition is doing. And not only do you have your competition, but then you have angry people whose name is like 1245 Jeff 494, whose profile picture is the most bizarre thing in the world, like leaving comments. And I think
absolutely.
My experience, Instagram is generally nicer than Facebook. I don't really post on Facebook, but I did a campaign recently on Facebook, which was like with a brand, and they promoted it and pushed it on Facebook. And like it was mainly, to be fair, like 50-year-old men, often with either actually Confederate flags behind them, or like photos of them 20 years ago, or England flags. Being like, dick, bet he takes up the arse. And
it's awful, isn't it? I had that recently,
So that's, I would love to know, like, how would you deal with social, beyond like taking the break from it a little bit? Because you can't take a break all the time. Like, how do you deal with social media in those two ways? Both the arseholes who say horrible things to you, but then the other layer, seeing your competition all the time and getting what they're doing and their highlight reel slammed in your face.
Yeah, so funny you said that, because I had a very similar experience recently with these, Jeff 29 360, whatever they're called. And it's funny, I don't actually get very fortunately, a lot of hate online. I think because I'm not, super controversial or say things, I'm not a hardcore vegan or anything where people can just come at you. So I haven't had a lot of hate, but I recently like I said, I love dancing and just being stupid. And listen, I'm not a good dancer. I don't pretend to be. I just enjoy it and just being a goofball.
I think you're a good dancer.
I did this one. Thank you. I'll take it. This one reel I did, I was just dancing to one of my favorite songs in the forest, and I literally had a moment of being like, I want to stop. I just want to record a stupid dance because I was loving this song in my ear. I did it. I recorded it and I shared it. Now, also, some of my like friends and family are like, oh my God, why are you sharing that? That's just so random. And then you start having the self-doubt, and then the whole of the internet just came at me. Again, it was all middle-aged to old men who had just, I don't know what went on. I don't know why it triggered them, but they were triggered. And there was just so much anger, and the names I was called, that I was abusing my dog. That was just crazy stuff. Now, if I think if it had
What were
been
you doing with the
about
dog in the
my
video? Were
work,
you riding the dog? What were you doing?
no, he was just standing there because he's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. They're so emotionless. He was just standing there, kind of like blank face, side eyeing me, thinking she's lost the plot. Yeah. So he wasn't getting involved, but he was just standing there, and they seemed to think that was, well, that he was hating his life and that he, he didn't have a good life and all. I was thinking, what? How are they even? All these stories that start coming out of this one 30-second video of me dancing, like a knob. Anyway, all these comments, if it had been about my work or been about, something I was really, I guess, felt very sensitive about, it probably would have knocked me and it probably would have really upset me and, caused a lot of issues. But it was me dancing like a knob, like I said. So I didn't take offense to it. If anything, I was like, bring on all the comments, because I was going back to them and loving that back and forth. And again, it's different for everyone. That, wasn't too bad, that one. But I haven't had a lot of people go at me in terms of my work or me as an individual. It's more just you can see it's coming from a sensitive place from them. And I think I've made peace with a lot of friends or strangers out there being triggered by certain things I do, knowing that it's something that they're working on. It's not to do with me or my my personality or what I'm doing. It's just something that they've got to figure out, because whenever I'm triggered, I know that it's something that I'm working on, and I can see that side now. When I was younger, it was harder, but I think social media is a funny place. I love it, as you said, helps my business massively. My whole business has been built off the back of my Instagram. But seeing other people and how they're doing and that constant chasing of the numbers is really tough, and no one really understands it unless they're in this world. I feel a lot of my friends who are not in this world at all, not really on socials apart from sharing their personal stuff, I can't really speak to them about it because it's such an odd industry or odd way of being. Family and friends, I've had a lot of judgment from friends, partners, families. It's really strange. And I'm sharing a lot. I'm sharing about hormones, periods, relationships, issues, therapy, which for a lot of people wouldn't speak about it in their normal life. And I'm sharing that stuff. So for me, it's not really judgment from strangers, it's more judgment from close family and friends. And I struggle the most with them not asking how you're doing, because I share so much online that they just kind of think they know what's going on, but they don't ask past what they see online. And that really hurts me. That's the only thing I do struggle with, is that judgment from people that are closest to me, thinking they know what's going on when that's just 30 seconds of my day, right?
And do they think as well you're oversharing? Is that their view? Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And my family, we're big communicators, so they don't really have an issue with it. But other families and other friends definitely don't understand it. And I don't think they understand why I do what I do and why I share what I share. And I sometimes try and explain to people there's, such a bigger purpose behind it for me. And I want to help as many people as I can, particularly women, feel comfortable and happy and safe and understood. But for a lot of people, I don't think they see it that way. They're just confused why I'd want to just go on Instagram and do a weird dance. They just don't get it, And I understand it. I understand it's not for everyone. But you have to have quite thick skin when you're online. I think you have to understand that you're not going to be for everyone, and that's okay.
And I think as well, people like you, it can be triggering because you're reflecting things that people do want to discover in themselves and heal within themselves. They just don't have the tools or the capacity to be able to do it. So it's just, you're showing them that you're doing it, but it's difficult for people that don't feel that they can. But it's really important that you keep doing the work. And, I was having a scan through your Instagram and I was thinking, why are we not taught this stuff as women, as young girls growing up as women in schools? Because we do go through a lot with our bodies, and it is, it has been a man's world in that it's 9 to 5, and women don't operate in that way. We're cyclical. We go through monthly cycles. Our energy dips through certain points of the month. Then we're like, loving life, wanting to dance in the woods. And I love that you created, I think if you got a program called Align, I think it's, or Realign, and it's about working with your cycle. So, I used to do HIIT workouts and think I had to do them, at the same time every week, whatever it was. And then, you just push through those times when your body's saying no, because you're told and you're not taught or educated any other way. So, at what point did you
agree.
Discover this on your journey, all of this?
No, it's such a good point around women as well, because that's been my biggest driver in the last probably 2 years, is to help as many women as I can. And when I do get, I guess, negative comments or that self-doubt online, whenever I worry about that, I go back to how could I support younger Talilla, who was going through her eating disorder, didn't feel supported or understood with, her relationships or how to navigate them, didn't know if, I should be having therapy or if that was a bit too taboo. I always think about how I could help her, because I felt so lost a lot of my life navigating all these things myself. And it's all of the stuff that I do now is driven to help women understand themselves and their bodies better. Of course, men can join in if they want to. I'm not saying I don't serve men at all, but for me, it's such an underrepresented area, women's health, and there's no, in fact, like hardly any research around how to support our bodies, especially through our cycles and through pre and postnatal menopause. Like, we go through such an incredible life cycle and journey, and there isn't enough out there. So we're just guessing the whole time, and we're trying these diets, these fads, ways of training, supplements, superfoods, thinking they're the answer, when actually, like, we have all the answers here. We just have to work with our bodies better and stop taking all these shortcuts. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Realign program we launched at the start of this year, that was essentially built off the back of my own journey of hitting a bit of a wall with my training. So I was same as you, hit workouts. I used to work at a gym in London called One Rebel at the very start of its whole journey, and now it's like a big chain. But at the very start, they had the reshape sessions, which were treadmill and weights, a bit like a Barry style class. And I would do them about 5-6 times a week, blasting my body, boom, 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 every single day, thinking that's how I'm going to get results, how I'm going to lose weight. And it was essentially like high intensity training 6 times a week. My cortisol levels were through the roof. My body was inflamed. My body wasn't changing. I wasn't getting results. If anything, I was just kind of damaging my body. And I kept thinking that was the way. I then, again, fast forward quite a few years, launched my own online fitness club. And after about 3 years of training every single day live with my members, which I adored, and we changed the way of training, and it was, obviously a lot more than just HIIT style sessions. But my body hit a bit of a wall because I was essentially overtraining and not prioritizing down regulation and recovery at all. Like, all I was doing was moving forward, just go, go, go. The next workouts, next style of training, next challenge. And I think after 3 years, my body was just like, no, this, you can't carry on like this. And I then faced loads of hormonal issues. My cycle was all over the place. And that's what a lot of my challenges, content, and essentially resources for my online fitness club are centered around now, helping women navigate their bodies and how to train and fuel and recover as a woman better.
Are there some kind of general principles for the audience that women could follow to kind of acknowledge and respect their cycle when it comes to exercise?
Yeah, there's a lot. And again, there's a lot that isn't, there's not enough research around this stuff yet as well, just to kind of put it out there. So a lot of it is about experimenting with our individual bodies. And as you guys know, women are so different. Like, all of us are completely unique and individual in how we respond to different types of training and food and fueling before a workout or afterwards. But some of the things that have massively helped me, as women, we're much more sensitive to cortisol, that stress hormone. So we have to be able to regulate and understand that better. With men, they don't have to worry so much about training fasted or fueled because they haven't got that sensitivity to it at the start of the day. The biggest change for me was fueling my workouts rather than training fasted. Now, training fasted has been, or fasting in general, has been so glamorized in the fitness industry for years because, it's got those kind of fat loss benefits, mainly due to because you're like narrowing that eating window. There's a lot of benefits to these things, but benefits that are researched on men. So again, with me, when I started fueling my workouts rather than not eating until about 11 a.m. when I've done a brutal 7 a.m. workout, I noticed a huge change to my cycle, the regularity, the pain I was experiencing, all of these things, my energy throughout the day. So the importance of fueling our workouts as women is huge, and paying real attention to that and experimenting with, again, fueling before a workout and after a workout, and the regularity of that throughout the day when you are eating is really important to consider as a woman. But also the intensity of our training. So high intensity interval training is amazing. That kind of cardio, getting yourself into that zone 5, incredible for your body, heart health, all of it. But when we are not teaming that with the lower intensity and lower impact stuff, that is going to have an effect again on our hormones. Because again, our stress levels are increasing, that inflammation within the body, our recovery is not as quick. And so it's really, really important that as women, we look at a bit of a hybrid style of training. And that's why I've brought a lot of Pilates and lower impact walking every day into my program and what I recommend for my members. It's not as glamorous, doesn't sell as easily because, well, wouldn't you rather just do a sweaty HIIT workout than go for a walk? But the benefits of mixing it up and reducing that high intensity to like 2 times a week max is huge. So those 2 things have really supported me, and that's what I'd recommend anyone to look at to start with.
The fasting stuff's really interesting because I've tried it in various forms, and I listened to a podcast with Peter Attia, who's
amazing.
He's an incredible guy, and he actually said in terms of weight loss, there's no the strongest evidence with regards to why fasting helps you lose weight is simply because you tend to eat less in a 24-hour period, not because of the times, but just because naturally you just don't eat as many calories. That's it. So it's as effective as just calorie counting.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Exactly that's all it is. And I think people, again, all the research is done on men as well. So even if there are some benefits for digestion and narrowing that eating window, because again, I do agree, as a generation and as society now, food is everywhere. You can just get it anytime, anywhere. We're not thinking about when is the best time to eat. Like, we're just kind of eating mindlessly, and we can order on an app and it comes to your door like that. So I think there's a lot of benefits to taking a break from over consuming and being really mindful around food, and fasting can be a really good way of like resetting that kind of mental approach and relationship with food. A lot of my clients have had or do have eating disorders, so I would never recommend any kind of intermittent fasting for those kind of people. So it's over glamorized, and there is not enough research, and it's also not really conducive to the majority of the population who train early, have a full day of work, need that energy, need that fuel. And again, half the population is women who there's no research that supports at all.
I just can't believe there's just hardly any research on women's body and fitness, and it just seems crazy. It's like half the population. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about?
It's wild. It makes me so angry.
Yeah. Well, things are changing, luckily. Can you talk a little bit about intuitive eating over calorie counting? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess a bit of background. When I was in the middle of my eating disorder, which was from probably around 16 to mid-20s, so it was a long and very kind of distressing portion of my life. And it's so sad that happens to so many women that I work with. And again, it's one of the things that is huge in our approach to helping women, because it's so common, and not just with women, obviously with men too. But as I said, I mainly serve women. But for a long time, I thought, because again, this is what the media share, and when I was younger, this is what was put out on socials and all the magazines you're reading, that you had to calorie count in order to be able to lose weight. Now, obviously, I'm also very focused on the facts, and the calorie count, if anyone is calorie counting, they are going to lose weight, and they kind of put themselves in that deficit. Obviously, that is an incredible way to really understand the quantity of food, how much energy is in it. Understanding that energy balance is crucial. But for a lot of my clients and myself at the time, doing that led to a very disordered approach to eating, and it just kind of became all consuming. And really, our life shouldn't revolve around thinking about food and our bodies all the time. And unfortunately, as women, I think a lot of our time and too much of our time is spent in our own heads thinking about that, which is really, really sad again. So when I was kind of experiencing this, I started working with different therapists and nutritionists, kind of understand, is there a different approach? Because surely I don't want to have to weigh out my oats and my protein and my chicken and just eat certain foods the rest of my life. Surely there's a better way. And so I started understanding intuitive eating. I actually call it conscious eating now, because I truly believe you have to understand food before you can become intuitive. If you're intuitive and we just listen to our bodies, we might crave chocolate, popcorn, donuts all the time, which there's nothing wrong with eating those foods, nothing bad about them. You know, there's no bad or good food. This is what I say to all of my clients. It's just food, but they don't have as much nutritional benefit as other foods do. But if we listen to our bodies, we might want to just sit on the sofa all day. And that, to me, our intuition has got a little bit lost along the way because there's so much noise from nutrition, from fitness, diet plans, from all these different people telling us all these different things. So for me, you have to kind of go back to being a bit more conscious with it and understand food, the energy balance, understand it all first, and then work out your approach. So once you understand, okay, this plate, or the best example is like a teaspoon of peanut butter. You think it's healthy. Peanut butter is health food. And there's so many calories in peanut butter, which again, nothing wrong with that. But if you're losing weight, you have to be mindful of that. So consciously being conscious of that rather than intuitively being like, I fancy a teaspoon of peanut butter, consciously thinking, okay, I know how many calories are in this. Is this beneficial for my fat loss goal or my, it might be hormone supporting goal or whatever it might be, consciously understanding if that is the right food for you and understanding the energy balance, nutritional benefits before you can become more intuitive. Now, I never track anything anymore. I don't weigh anything. My partner is opposite when he's cutting, which he still does, which kind of triggers me a little bit. He will go into hardcore weighing everything. And that approach works for him. It will never work for me. So I have to find this more conscious, intuitive, whatever you want to call it, approach that allows me to enjoy food, but not let it consume my mind all the time. And that's worked for a lot of the women that I work with, which is awesome. But again, it's what's finding, you have to find an approach that works for you. And again, I'm sure you two are completely different to how I approach it, but it's an individualized approach. Why you can never follow someone's plan. You can't get anyone's results because we're completely different in the way we, our genetic makeup, all of it. So
I'm on the beige food diet at the moment, being in my second trimester of pregnancy.
I'm on a weird one, actually.
I love that.
And you're the opposite. He's doing really well.
I used to be like I used to be a boxer. So I was like often walking around at like 5% body fat and 100 kilos back in the day, in the glory days. But now I'm not in those days anymore. Now I'm a dad. But I'm like, now I'm older. Like things just don't change as quick. Like I used to go to the gym for like a week again and I'd get a 6-pack. It would be obscene, like how quickly my body would adapt to the change. And that's not happening anymore. And so I've started something called, Tim Ferriss created the slow carb diet, he calls it.
Okay.
And so what I'm eating, and other quite famous people have followed it for periods, like even like, what's it called? Not Peter, it's Huberman followed it for a while. Mm-hmm. And so it's all you're allowed to eat basically is a clean protein source. Okay. So vegan have tofus and otherwise you're like eating just steaks and sausages or whatever. So a clean protein, well, not sausages. Yeah. A clean protein source. Yeah. Lentils or beans is the other component. That's number 2. Then number 3 is vegetables, but vegetables from overground. So no potatoes or anything, mainly stuff that's grown overground. Okay. There's a few little exceptions to it. So you can have a little bit of peanut butter. I am at a stage where I'm dipping nuts into peanut butter as my snack, which is the best. I'm like dipping Brazil nuts into peanut butter. And then all you're allowed to drink is coffee and water. Black coffee. But you know what?
And how long do you have to do it for?
Well, you do it definitely, but there is one cheat day. And actually, for reasons I don't quite understand, it's kind of beyond my understanding of the body. The cheat day is actually important, apparently, so your body doesn't adapt and then stop you losing weight.
It's all he's been talking about all week, this cheat day tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
And what have you got planned for the treat day?
And there's certain things you can do, apparently. Like if you have grapefruit before you commence cheat day, it does something to something that then. And if you do like little exercises, these certain exercises before each meal, it can help stimulate a response of some hormone
grapefruit
or like
before pizza.
But yeah, I feel actually fantastic. It's the healthiest diet plan I've ever done. In that there is no calorie counting, there's no limit to what I can eat, there's no time restricted eating. There is a weird sense of missing something because there's no sugar, and I'm actually even avoiding sweetener. So I'm not no stevia or anything. Nothing that is sweet at all, except an odd bit of like lemon that's squeezed in. But I feel actually really good for it. And I'm the kind of person that back in the day when I was boxing, I would eat huge amounts and then purge. But I didn't see it as purging. I saw it as, well, I've eaten so much. I'm going to have to do like another 4 hours of training tomorrow to make weight. So just get rid of it now. It was really, and actually, I think that's with men's eating disorders. And I only realised it was an eating disorder like 7 years later. Men tend to be quite practical, I think, often. I'm sure not all the time, but it's more just a case of I've got too much in, so let's get some out.
That's so interesting. And I think a lot of athletes, obviously, and again, specifically ones that have to make weight, experience that. And I guess like jockeys and boxers and whatever experience that massively, because you're right, there's so much pressure around that weight, but also in sports like, in dance, or a lot of my friends who were kind of in ballet and those, or dancers, or in performance, basically had to look a certain way, and then there's so much pressure around that, and that can trigger a lot of eating disorders. That's so interesting you went through that. Wow.
I know, because when he said that to me, you came across so practical, like it was just such a practical solution to something that you were trying to fix, like such a manly approach. And that's the first thing I said. That's an eating disorder, and you were like, no, and it's sort of taken you a while to realize that.
But I shared on social media about it, and my mom said, Adam, like, you didn't tell me that. I thought there was no issue. And then she was quite hurt that she read about it on social media.
Yes,
that's so interesting. I wonder if you had, though, because again, all these eating disorders are essentially a mental health issue, right? They come from here, and it's like something that's like kind of blocking. But I wonder if you had that, or it literally was for you, well, I practically have to make weight. Like, I wonder what the link is there with that kind of mental blockage. Was there any negative feelings towards your body, or you just literally had to make a certain weight to get into the
but I never enjoyed it. I never enjoyed the process of purging, or like it was just very like I guess sometimes
I also went through that at the same time. For me, it wasn't so much having to make weight for anything, but a control thing. I actually felt better when I did, interestingly enough. So I didn't enjoy it. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but it gave me that relief. And I think that's something, again, that's not spoken about enough, is a lot of the time these eating disorders, or anything where you're trying to control these things, is that kind of a bit of a cry out for help, or like kind of a notice me type thing. And I've worked with therapists through it in the past. Mine was triggered a lot from my parents separating, and a lot of stuff happening when I was younger. And then I was trying to control everything I could, which the only thing I could control at that point was my eating, and then being sick and that kind of process. So it's interesting how everyone, responds really differently to it.
And I think on that note of control, I think I guess when I was training that hard, it was just social media was just emerging. So there weren't those kind of pressures. But a lot of the people that I knew at the time that were as fit as me, it was all about, control for them. Is the one thing that they could have control of in their life was how they looked. And like, okay, I can't pinch an inch, I can pinch a millimeter. And constant monitoring in the mirror, and that was the one thing. Like, work was okay. I wasn't in any kind of relationship at the time, and had no time for a relationship because I was working. Going to the gym in the morning before work, the gym after work, and yoga, and running to all of those places in between across London. But I could control that, and it was wonderful. I'm not trying to advocate for bulimia.
But it's the truth, isn't it? That's what you're feeling.
That's what I needed at the time. And as you say, I felt lighter afterwards. I didn't feel burdened by the weight of the food, which again sounds problematic.
I know, it's scary, isn't it, when you see those cycles? And and for me, food soothed me. I when I was in a bad place, I would emotionally eat, and I would go into my room and just eat and eat and eat and eat, and then hate myself and be like, well, why did I just do that? Now I feel ugly and fat and bloated, and then it was that kind of getting control back, but it would keep happening. It's so scary how our mind just keeps going through that cycle, thinking that is normal, until something happens where you're just like, I can't keep doing this anymore. But it happens to so many people. It's crazy.
Let's talk on change angle slightly. So you were working for One Rebel, and you were teaching there, and that was kind of, with that, if you were there that often, I guess that was one of your main income streams back in the day.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually teaching. I wasn't a coach. I was in the marketing team. Well, when I first joined, there was one studio, and I joined as a social media, I think, coordinator to help with their socials. Very quickly got thrown into the deep end because of the way the business was being run, and became the head of brand within like 2 months, because I just was there every day, sleeping, breathing, loving it. And then I was with them for 2.5 years as their head of brand before I went freelance and decided to kind of go self-employed because I wanted to do my own thing. I had my PT qualification when I was there because I'd always loved training people. I've always been very active and did that a bit on the side, just kind of one-to-ones in the park with some of my friends. I didn't want to go into fitness. It wasn't really my thing. I loved marketing, email strategies. That was like what I adored. But yeah, One Rebel was a huge part of my career. It really, really helped with a lot of stepping stones to help me build a bit of a, I guess, marketing consultancy business for other fitness brands when I left them.
That's really interesting that you said that about these skills that you acquired, because lots of PTs, etc., would maybe look at what you've done and think, oh, well, I can do that. Let's get a camera, and I can build that just as easily.
Dance around.
And I think what people forget is all of the behind the scenes stuff. Not only at the moment your time, like I'm sure your time is pulled in so many different directions, from filming. Oh, baby.
I'm going to go. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to go and sort the baby. But at least we got most of the conversation. So it's lovely to meet you.
Holly, come back in 5 minutes and we'll tag in. Cause I'm sure.
Bring Sonny up.
Yeah.
Bring Sonny up. We can join. So oh God, where's we gone? Right, question. Right, skills. So you're pulled in lots of directions. And at the moment, you're a marketer. You're actually then delivering the sessions. You're working with people. You're managing a team, etc.
Yeah.
But then also you built so much because you had previous skills. So I would love to know what skills you think, and maybe what support you had that made you believe you could build this kind of solo business. Yeah, what made you believe you could do it? And then what skills helped you do that?
Yes, great question. Look, I think I've always had that entrepreneur spirit in me. My dad was a kind of successful business owner. He had some health clubs, and we've always had it in the family where we are going to go getters. So in terms of self-belief, I doubt myself a lot, but I've always just wanted to do my own thing and help as many people as possible. And for me, that was doing it by myself. Not by myself, but I knew that I had to make some steps to make that change and to see that happen. In terms of the One Rebel days, it helped me massively because I was thrown in the deep end. I didn't know any of this stuff. I actually started in fashion, believe it or not, because you won't catch me in anything other than Lycra these days. But I started in fashion thinking that I was going to be a fashion designer. You know, I'd spend my childhood doodling in my notepad all these dress designs, did it at uni, really quickly realized that industry was so cutthroat and I was not thick-skinned enough to deal with that at that age. Kind of pivoted and went again more into this kind of marketing, social media for fitness brands, then landed at One Rebel. So I knew nothing at that point about social media, really, email strategy, you know, how to build a brand, that kind of messaging community. I had to just learn it. And I was told pretty much a few months in, you're going to be head of brand now because this guy was stepping down. So I was like, oh shit, okay, well, I better learn this stuff then. So I was honestly YouTubing, Googling, trying to understand everything I could, throwing stuff at the wall, seeing if it stuck. The biggest thing that my boss told me at the time was, you know, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness after you've done it, and then we can go from there. So I just kept doing things and trying things. We had a lot of backlash at One Rebel for the things that we put out because it was bold, it was pretty taboo at the time. There's a lot of stuff that we got a lot of backlash for, but then I very quickly learned how to deal with that. Wasn't it,
a little bit like you were kind of like in the same space as Gymbox in a way?
Exactly. And you know, it was a lot of probably stuff that I wouldn't promote or talk about now, but at the time I was learning and navigating my way through the industry too. So, you know, like I said, it was a really good learning curve because I built thick skin very quickly. The work dynamic in that company also helped me with that. I very quickly learned what kind of boss I would want to be in the future, what kind of boss I wouldn't want to be. It was a big learning time in my life. And I would say to anyone to go and experience, I think it's not the corporate world, but it, you know, essentially was the closest to corporate that I've ever got to experience that, to understand how that works, because I learned a lot from that to be able to apply to my business, my team now, which, you know, I still am lacking a lot of areas that in the corporate world teaches you. And I would never want to be in that world. But when my brother joined me, he had been at a BCG, a Boston Consultancy Group, for a long time. And they are like, you know, systems, everything is like that kind of proper corporate setup. He joined me and was like, well, where's the spreadsheet for this? And I was like, well, I haven't got one. It's all up here. It's in my brain. And he couldn't believe it. And it's that kind of contrast of those two worlds. But I'm glad I learned a little bit of that. But for me, it's always been learning as much as I can along the way. I don't pretend that I know it all, because I really do not. But what I've always known is how to connect with people and build that community. And that's what everything for me is built off, is community. And hopefully I'm pretty good at doing that, and will continue to use that as my, main strength. And then I've brought a lot of people in along the way to help me with stuff that I don't know well. Like, I'm not a numbers girl. Don't ask me to understand anything about the setup of the business in terms of like how the commercials work, because it blows my mind. But I got someone in to help me with that very quickly, which allowed me to do what I'm good at.
That's so important, to actually pay for help. I think that applies even to your house as well. Like, you have to work out how long something would take you to do it with any kind of competence, and then how much it would cost for someone to do it with competence in probably far less time.
Yes.
Like, I needed something built for my ice bath. It's very kind of like modern middle class problem. So I needed some kind of cover for my ice bath chiller. And I was like, I'm researching forever trying to get one. I couldn't find. Oh God, sorry. Need to get in the ice bath. And I thought, I can try and make one. And I started to like try and work out plans and think, okay, I can buy this new saw. And I was like, I've already spent 4 hours researching stuff. For me to do it with any kind of competence, it will probably take about 5-6 hours. Or if I could just pay someone 100.
Completely.
100, and which is kind of how much I charge for a 1 hour private, just to get someone to come and build one. And so I think we all need, as much as our funds allow, realize like how much can we make per hour or per project, and this thing that needs to get done, how long would it actually take us, and is it a good use of our time in that sense? And I'd love to, you're very busy, and I'd love to know, like, what do you want? Like, what do you want more in your life at the moment? Like, do you want more work? Are you at a point where you want to step back? Like, what gets you going?
Oh, such a good question that I've been asking myself the last probably year, because Club 5, my online fitness club, we're coming into our 4th year now. We'll hit 4 years in July, and it has been incredible but relentless. Like, we have not stopped. It's been go, drive. What's the next plan? Like, a year and a half into that business, me and my brother launched another business, our online training platform. That has been huge in the sense that it's a beast, and we thought it would kind of be a bit of a side hustle. And it's, he's now doing that full time. It's been the last 4 years for me have been the growth period, and I could keep growing. I love what I do. I love working hard. My weekends, I'm often working, whether that's healthy or not. Friends and family are like, oh, you need to stop working and prioritize other things in your life. I agree with them to an extent, but I also, me and my partner are luckily the same. Luckily and unluckily, probably, because then we never stop and we burn out and then we crash and we wonder why. But we both just love it. We the hustle for us is so exciting. However, when I had these hormone issues and I faced the point where I had to stop and had to calm myself down, going into 2023, my word was calm. And everything I did, I was trying to get that outcome. I have to find some calmness. Like, I just have to, more for my nervous system, I have to just let the girl just chill a bit. I was just running on fumes. And also at a stage of my life I'm turning 31 in August. I want to start thinking about a family. I don't want kids yet, but I do. And that body clock is ticking away. And unfortunately, we haven't got that privilege as women to be able to be like, well, I'll just wait and see what happens, because you do have to have some planning involved in that. So that's a lot of pressure. And I do feel slightly like, okay, I don't feel the pressures of the, the timeline of life, but I feel conflicted between wanting to drive ahead and launch the next thing. I've got in my head what I want Club 5 to become. I know exactly what it should be and what that looks like. But that requires me to give everything in my being, in my bank account, everything for the next 3 years minimum. But how does that work with then my life timings? How does that work with having kids and a family and looking after my family? Like, my mum's not well. How does that work with me being present for her? It is a constant question in my head, to be honest. And I don't think I've figured it out. Maybe next time we speak, I will have done, but I don't think you ever do. I think you're just kind of, navigating that as you go along.
But I think it's important to identify what you want outside of work as early on in life as possible. For so long, there were days like 7 years ago, where I would teach almost like 300 days in a row. I think there was one point where it was 300 days of teaching like 26 classes a week, and almost every weekend I'd be teaching workshops and trainings internationally, like every single weekend, like flying out Friday night, flying back late Sunday, then just straight back to the London grind on Monday. And just years went by so quick, and I didn't ever do anything for myself. And I didn't really know what I wanted. I just thought, well, the goal is money, like Irish Catholic guilt. The goal is money. You need to provide. And it's been, Holly's far more chilled than me on the work side of things. Like she's amazing, but since being with her, she's made me slow down a lot. And then having a child even more. Like all I want, because it affects, obviously, as a female, when you have a child, you have to think about how this can affect your future work. But for a guy as well, like, it depends on the dad. Like, I want to be with Sonny all the time. I don't want to go away for 3 days in a row, ideally. I don't want to go on retreats to the other side of the world without him. I've dragged him to 10 countries already. I'm going to drag him to a lot more, as much as possible. But it's...
absolutely.
And that's what I want. And I want to make sure I make enough money to provide. But I've realised at the best times, like last weekend, I was just with him, chilling out. We walked up Box Hill. We just sat and had little picnics and all that kind of stuff. And it's just the best.
It's so funny. Yeah, I agree. I used to think I was happiest when I was hitting those milestones within the business, this many members or this many kind of comments on this video or whatever it might be, those kind of, metrics that you're trying to hit. And the moments I've felt the most happiness recently are just in, like you just said, those simple moments that would fly by a few years ago that I would never notice. And I've had to force myself to notice those moments. If I'm honest, I'm not someone naturally that can be in the moment and be really present. I really struggle with that. That's why I find yoga really hard. I must do one of your sessions, but that's why I find it hard. But now, just going for a walk with my dog, or the mornings with Wes having a coffee on the sofa talking about random shit, it's that for me now, where I'm like, those little moments in life, the right now, make me so happy. So I'm trying to find more of that and really appreciate those little things that equal happiness now, and for the first time I'm considering slowing down. And the start of this year, I said, this year I want it to be about learning. I want it to be about filling my cup back up and nourishing myself. For me, learning is huge. I love reading and I love podcasts and taking time to really, I guess, give back to myself so I'm able to give back to people more. My biggest purpose in life is to help people. I want to help women as much as I can. And this year I was like, I'm just going to pause. I'm going to have a day a week where I'm just reading, or I'm learning, or I'm going to see a friend, or I'm going on a walk, or I'm going to do something completely creative again. I love painting and I love art, and I haven't done that in so long. And the other week I did that and I was like, God, this is not work, and it's really nice and it's really fun, and it sounds so sad, but it's a big shift for me, that, and it feels really nice to be in that place where I'm not trying to prove to myself or my family that I'm good enough if I'm working hard, because I'm good enough if I'm just being, and that was a big kind of shift for me this year.
It's good. It's a good shift. It's a good shift, I'm sure. And I'm going to but mention one. But it's something I read. I think it was a guy called Naval Ravikant that said it, that money is only useful to the extent that it grants you freedom to do the things you want to do. And often that freedom is in the form of time. So, we all need money to, pay for the house, pay rent. But really, it's having enough money to say, okay, I'm going to have the day off to spend time with my family.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to do actually the things that really matter. And that's how I've started to approach money since seeing that. Is I do want money, but I want it because it might allow me to spend time with my family, or go on. So we live in a beautiful part of the world that's full of amazing scenery to make the most of. Where can people? In fact, before you tell me where people can find you, etc., is there any last thought you want to leave with our listeners? Something that's kind of motivating you at the moment, inspiring you, something you've watched, a quote that keeps you ticking, anything you want to share?
For me, it probably would be, at the moment, to understand yourself better. For me, the last 2 years, again, have been about understanding myself as much as I can, and therapy's been a huge part of that. Now I talk about therapy all the time online, but every week or every 2 weeks I try and speak to, she's not really a therapist actually, she's more of a life coach, and you can choose whoever you want to, but having that person to speak to who is not in your life, that's the kind of not connected to anything emotionally, is huge. And she's helped me work through a lot of my limiting beliefs, issues in relationships. Like, she's been such a incremental part to me feeling happier in myself. And I think when you're happier in yourself, you just show up as the best version of you. And I know it sounds cliche, but for so long I was trying to hide parts of myself, or I was trying to, simmer myself down because I was told I was too much or too this or too that. And when I started embracing every single part of myself and showing up as the version that I wanted to be, everything just became easier. Like, everything became easier. I wasn't like battling with stuff anymore, battling with people. It just was like I was at peace with myself, and I can kind of breathe and be like, oh, okay, it's all going to be okay. Life is just, I just need to kind of keep showing up, keep doing my best, keep being kind to people, keep understanding myself, and it just gets a lot easier. So my kind of recommendation would be just to really get to know yourself as much as you can every single year, because there's so much we can find out about ourselves, and it's so beautiful that. And I don't think we do that enough. We really sit with ourselves and understand ourselves enough.
Nice. And where can people find you?
So Instagram, Talilla Henchoz. No one can ever say Talilla, but it's spelled Tallilla, and then Henchoz. I mean, you can put it in the notes, I'm sure, because I can't
is it Mexican?
Explain that, but no, it's not Mexican. It's actually Swiss.
No,
I wish it was Mexican.
Oh, really? I just said
more...
that whole name sounds quite Mexican in my head.
Yeah, everyone says that, but no, we're Swiss family. So yeah, socials, Talilla Henchoz, and then my online fitness club is Club 5 if anyone's interested in joining our program. And we also have an online training platform called Leap Academy if you want to become PT, nutritionist, or a kind of wellness professional. So that's it, really.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Honestly unbalanced.